Hello there, Ray here. Today guys, we are going to be showing you the super simple raid farm that we came up with after months and months of testing and redesigning. It is finally here. This thing is super simple, as you can see, as well as extremely fast, and it can provide you over 72 different items in the game of Minecraft. Most notably the emeralds, which this farm produces over 3,500 of, as well as the totem of undying, which over 350 per hour are produced, and many more that are very useful. This raid farm is so easy to use as well as build up, and the amount of items it gives you is so outstanding that it is a must-have for any survival world, and I would put it on the same level as AFK fish farm. And there's actually not that much to it. You can see this is pretty much all there is to the entire build. The most complicated thing about this build is just two clocks. We got a hopper clock here, and we also just got a repeater clock over here. And that is all the major redstone that is to this. So share this with your favorite Minecrafters. And remember guys, we're really close to 75,000 subscribers. So if you haven't subscribed already, make sure to do that. I want to say big thanks to everyone who joined us during our snapshot testing stream. Those are every Wednesday and Friday with the viewers. And that is the time when we built this up and designed it, went through a lot of different versions of the farm before finally arriving on this one. You can see all the guys that joined us during those streams. If you guys ever want to take part in building up something really cool and new, make sure to check out those streams. So the way that the raid farm works is very similar to the very first raid farm that ever existed, which was one that I showed you guys quite a while ago. And that video got a lot of popularity, and it came up with many other versions of raid farms if you guys want to check them out. But I think this one is going to overtake all those prior versions of it. And the way that the raid farm works is that you start a raid, which is when you kill one of these villagers that have a banner on their heads. This will give you bad omen. You can find these type of pillagers in pillager outpost, or you can find them from a patrolling pillager, or you can find them during a raid. So if I go ahead and kill this guy, I'll be given bad omen, which is the effect right here. It lasts about one Minecraft day. Now if you happen to have this effect while you are near a village, it will cause a raid to occur, which will spawn in all those mobs that we've seen before. So I happen to have a village over here. There is a villager and a bed. That's all you need to create a village. And if I get so close to this village, you can see that it converted my bad omen and took it away and created a raid bar. So this is our official raid that is going to be spawned in. So when a raid spawns in, it's going to be a certain direction from the center of the village, which is the pillar part of the bed. So if you go straight upwards, you'll see that this actually correlates with the corner of one of the ice on the platform. And the game will actually try to check a 5x5 area in the southeast corner of that bed. In which case, if it finds a proper place to spawn in the raid, it will be able to do that. Then the raid will be able to go through each wave. Start at wave 1, which is the easiest, and once that wave has been completed, all the mobs have been removed from the area, then it'll move on to 2, work its way up, and go as high as wave 8. And then after it goes through all the waves, what happens is the villager will consider the raid as a victory. And you can see the little victory bar that was up at the top. And that just means that the village has survived. If the villager would happen to die at that time, then the raid would all start celebrating as they have overcame the village. And that's the basics of how a raid occurs normally in the game of Minecraft. So now I'll show you the perspective of the player. So the way you want to start it is first by killing a pillager captain, which is one of the banners. You come out here to one of these pillager outposts. So it's a good idea to kind of build your farm near one of these. And just find one of these guys that have a banner on their head. And once you kill them, then you will obtain the bad omen, and then you can use this to start up your farm. So I got the bad omen effect. Let's go back over to the raid farm. Now you don't need to build this raid farm in a pillager outpost like the very first design that I showed. And that's because they changed it so that the banners that come from these raids can actually be reused to start new raids. In the past, that wasn't possible. So here at the raid farm, there's two clocks. This clock here will tell the player when to drop downwards. So make sure this one is on, make sure the items are moving back and forth. There's also a clock over here which moves these trapdoors back and forth. This prevents the player from accidentally hitting a mob that doesn't have low HP, and I'll explain why that's important later on. So with this clock, you just want to flick this lever really quickly on and off, and that will start that up. And now to go ahead and AFK it, you will of course be in survival. You can do this in whatever difficulty you want. This is hard difficulty. You want to press up against this cobble wall, and then the machine will automatically push you over. So push forward, then stop, then you'll be pushed to the side. This is exactly where you want to stand. Then you just want to aim through this little crack here between this stone piece and this chest here. I did put some swords in here. This is the type of sword that you'll want to use. It's a looting 3, sweeping edge 3, sharpness 5, as well as mending. We also have a beacon over here which gives us regeneration, as well as strength 2. Strength 2 will be applied to the sweeping edge. This allows you to do more damage not only to the initial mob which you are attacking, but will also do more damage to the surrounding one. So now once you are in here, you can go ahead and just wait, and then the machine will go automatically drop the player where you will be within range of the village, starting up the raid, and then automatically get pushed over into this bubble column, which will send you back to the top, and then you'll get pushed back over. Perfectly aligned, ready to go. Now at this point you can go ahead and put on an auto clicker if that's allowed on your server, or you can just manually click every 1 second. If they do introduce the new type of combat, it means that we don't even need auto clickers to run this farm. We can just hold down our button using like a weight, or using like the F3 plus T trick, and this will allow our player to automatically constantly swing. So look forward to that as well. Once the mobs come in, you want to make sure that you are clicking as soon as they're coming in. You don't want to let them build up, because there can be so many mobs that they can take max cramming. So all you do is sit here and kill them, and you can see I already obtained some more bad omen, which will allow you to start up the next raid. And then the clock will automatically drop you again whenever the villager down below is ready for a new raid, and the cycle repeats itself all over again. It's actually very simple to understand. Now the next raid is being spawned in up above, and they will come down in front of the player. The player will go ahead and kill them. Also notice the XPs that are coming from the mobs are going towards repairing your sword, so you can run this farm for an infinite amount of time. So let's go ahead and take a look in behind. What we got back here is a hopper minecart inside of a block. This is just to pick up the items, as you get quite a few items and one hopper won't be able to keep up with it. And I just pushed the minecart up against a cake, just so it's slightly over top of this hopper here, so that way we can divide the items between the two hoppers, which allows it to keep up with the amount of loot coming through. You can put in as many chests as you want. You can even put this into a sorting system if you want to have all your items sorted out. You can see the wide range of items you get from there. Tons of totems of undying. You also can get like health potions from the witches, all the witch loots, which includes cool stuff like redstone, gunpowder for your fireworks, glowstone, which is great for a lot of things. You also get like sugar, spider eyes, sticks, but probably the most important thing you get out of this is emeralds. Those come from the vindicators. And you can also see how many pillager captains you have killed, because you get one of these ominous banners from each of the pillager captains. And these are the guys that will give you the bad omen effect, which is used to start the raid. You also can get the axes from the vindicators, as well as the crossbows that can be enchanted from the pillagers. The axes can also be enchanted with sharpness, which is the only place in the game where sharpness is automatically added to an axe. Now with these crossbows that you can get from this farm, there's actually a slim chance of you getting an extremely rare crossbow, which has special enchantments on it, which is normally not obtainable in survival. Now, I did a whole separate video talking about this crossbow with Earth Computer, and the chance of getting this is 1 in 400,000. So if you want to learn about how to get a super OP as well as rare crossbow in your very own survival world, be sure to check out that video in the description. And there's a lot of other loot that you can get, like glass bottles and saddles, which come from the Ravagers. And if you want to, after you have started the raid and you have completed it, if you're within range of the villager when it becomes a victory, the villager will give you the hero of the village effect, which you can use to make other villagers give you free items. Now, I talked about this in a previous video, which I'll also link down in the description if you want to learn more about how to do that. So using this farm, you can get over 72 different types of items in Minecraft, and that's why I think it's very useful to have this farm. And I put it on the same scale as like AFK fish farm, as those things can give you an enormous amount of very useful items as well. Now I'm going to go over the different parts of the farm and why they are built the way they are. So if you ever ask like, why is this a certain way, hopefully this will answer the question. So I'm going to kind of start from the top and work your way to the bottom of the farm. Up here we have the platform which they spawn on. And the game will only spawn in the raid over certain types of blocks that are solid topped, which allow the mobs to spawn on top of them. There also cannot be anything above the block that the game tries to spawn the raid on. So there can't be a single block above it all the way to the very, very top of the world. So you can't have like fences in here, you can't have water in here, you can't have buttons. Any little thing will stop them from spawning on here. We even tried block 36, which is an invisible clear block, and that will also stop them from spawning. Now, by having a 5x5 area, this is the maximum area where the game will check within the first region. They'll also check out some farther regions, but those are too far for us to really use them. And cheater codes looked into the Minecraft code to figure out exactly the areas in which the raids would spawn in, as well as other parameters that the raids use. So by using this entire 5x5 area, we have a 100% chance of each wave being spawned in and not failing. If we only have a couple blocks here for them to spawn on, like we did in some of our early versions of the farm, there's a chance that the wave will fail to find a location to spawn in and therefore it will not spawn in, which means you will not get these guys with the banners, which means you cannot keep an infinite loop going. And that's kind of important because this is like an AFK farm where you want to just AFK and keep the cycle going on and on and on without having to constantly go all the way over to like the pillager outpost to grab some more bad omen effect. Now the game will only try to spawn them in this small area here, so even if we have like trapdoors or anything else around the edges here, the game will not try to put the mobs on top of those. The only reason why I have buttons on top of these trapdoors is because the lava here will place fire on top of these, even though it doesn't actually burn the trapdoor. So you can see them kind of spawning in. You can see how the lava is being used. So with the Ravagers, they're kind of a big problem in the farm, so we want to get rid of them. So what we have them is just get pushed to the edges, and then they get automatically, they kind of walk up these small steps from the edge here. They walk on top of this glass here, since they're a little bigger and wider than the other mobs. And then they will automatically be inside of this lava here. Since if you're against this chest here, you are touching the lava, so they will burn. So let me go ahead and summon one in for you guys. Summon Ravager, and you can kind of see how they automatically walk up, and then they get inside the lava, and then they try to swim up the lava, and this will allow them to die. This will not actually destroy their loot. If you watch, they do produce one saddle for every time they die. You can see the saddle right there. And some of the saddles will actually fall down into the water here, fall down here, and even fall down there, and you will obtain the saddles in the chest. So that's why we have the lava kind of spaced out enough so that it don't matter which way the Ravager gets pushed. If he gets pushed like in this corner here, he'll get pushed up against this fence here, and this will still allow him to get stuck in the lava since they are kind of big, wide, as well as taller than the other mobs. Now these gates will not burn if you're playing in Java. If you're having trouble with like your fence gates burning, you can always put in stuff like signs or banners by attaching them to the chest down here and then putting them up here. Now the way that we get the lava to actually stay here and not flow inwards, as we cannot place any blocks on the backside here because that would be over top of this. We have to kind of use a trick where liquids will decide to flow one direction. They won't ever check the other direction. So I can show you guys how we do this. What you want to do is just have some blocks back here when you first put in the lava. So I'll go ahead and remove this, and we'll put in a new source of lava. So now if I place lava right here on top of this open fence, the lava is going to check what is the fastest direction it can go to fall downwards. If it goes this way, it has to go 2 blocks before falling down. So it has to go 1, 2, then it can fall down. But if it goes this way, it only has to go 1 block before falling down. So if you place it right here, what it's going to do is go this direction and ignore this way. Now once the lava has completely flown over to this side, it will no longer check this direction. So you can go ahead and remove this block, and now the lava will just stay there kind of floating in midair. I also have some trapdoors up here just to prevent the Ravagers from swimming too high up on top of it, and then their loots would end up burning. Now, a lot of these blocks that are trapdoors you can actually switch out with normal blocks, as long as it doesn't affect the way that the Ravagers are killed. Like you put a solid block right here, the Ravager is not going to be able to climb up on the ledge between this chest and this block right here. Now the way that the mobs get pushed off is just by pushing each other off. You can kind of see how the slidiness of the ice allows the majority of them to get pushed to the side and get pushed down into the water. What you're normally left with is the Ravagers, which most of the ones along the edge will burn. Once in a while you have one in the center, which will not burn. You can see this guy here. Since he spawned in the center, he is not near the lava. And if you guys didn't know, when there is a mob riding another mob, it is actually impossible to actually push these guys. You notice how I can try to push them? You can't push them. No other mob can actually push these guys either. So they're just going to stay there. There's a way to get rid of these guys, and what's happening is my guy just dropped down very far in the world. So any mobs that are so far away from him will automatically despawn. And as you see, the rider despawned because he was really far away from the player. And by doing this, we can either choose to have these guys sit in the center, despawn, or not. It really depends up to you. If you want to, you can actually make every mob that's left on the platform despawn as well by making the player fall down a little bit farther. Or you can actually save every mob on top of the platform, including the ones that are riding on top of the Ravagers, by not having the player go down as far. But there is a slim chance these guys will despawn on their own. As you can see, a couple of them are despawning. And that's because the way the game works, if a mob's so far away from the player, there's a chance that it can despawn. But the majority of mobs get pushed down here into this water, and this is just another way to kind of congregate them while allowing them to get funneled down into an even smaller area. So the hardest part about this is just to get the mobs down to player as fast as possible, while also allowing them to be in the smallest area possible so the player can kill them. And that's why we have them getting pushed up against this fence here, And the final area which they push into is one block and a partial block. But this also allows it so the player is able to reach all the mobs. So you kind of see they're sitting in two different little piles, but the player is actually able to kill both of these piles, so they're not too far away for the player to reach from where he is AFKing. Now these trapdoors going back and forth are one of the newest parts that we added to the farm. What can occur is when the mob is falling through the air, if you didn't have these trapdoors, they would land here by the player, but there's a chance that the player is swinging his sword and is actually killing the mob and damaging it in mid-air before it hits the ground. And the way the game works is that if the mob takes the damage, there is kind of like a grace period where it can't take any more damage. So what would happen is the mob would be hit by the player and take some damage, but it would still be alive. And that's a problem because the number one thing that people have problems with when it comes to raid farms is the Vex. And the Vex come from the evokers. And what is occurring is that if the evokers get damaged by the player and they live through the damage, they're able to summon a Vex to attack the player, even if they can't see the actual player. So even though the player is down, well hidden, the evoker here would be able to still summon the Vex to come over here and attack this player. So we need to make sure that every time the player swings, he kills all the evokers in a single swing. And with the trapdoors here, all the mobs are able to hit either this one or this one, and this will cause the initial damage from the falling to be applied to them. And then they'll only have 1 health. Then they'll fall through to where the player is at, and he will be able to kill them. Now he does have sharpness 5, which helps a little bit with the initial mob he's attacking, but the sweeping edge is the biggest thing that helps, because that will apply damage to the other mobs around him as well. And what's kind of different with the raid farms is that the mobs coming in can also have regeneration. You might see some that have like particles around them. This is because witches inside of raids can start throwing potions of regeneration to the other mobs. So even though they're taken down to 1 heart from the fall damage, they can start regenerating it back again. And that's why it's important for the player to constantly be killing the mobs in front of him so that they'll never get enough health to overcome his attack. Because if the evoker would be allowed to regenerate back up again, the player would not be able to kill it in 1 hit, and therefore the Vex would be able to come and kill the player. And that's what we're trying to really avoid, is the Vex summoning all together. And this is where the strength beacon comes in handy as well, because the strength will actually do more damage to the surrounding mobs which are being killed by the sweeping edge. So mobs are actually able to regenerate quite a bit, and the player is still able to kill them in 1 hit. Now in the original raid farm that I came up with, I used boats to kind of collect any Vex that would fly around, but we don't have that in this farm just because we're avoiding Vexes altogether. I recommend if you are using auto clicker, go ahead and set to about swing once per second. This will allow you to get the sweeping edge effect while also being the fastest time in between swings. So the redstone clock here is actually really simple. It's just 2 repeaters that have a short pulse put into them, and they're just going into the 2 different pistons so they can alternate. This way there is never a single point in time where the mobs can fall all the way down to the player and accidentally be hit by him. Now this problem with the player accidentally hitting the mobs is something Xerox, one of the ProtoTech members, noticed and told me about. So we went ahead and tried to avoid this. The other clock that we have in the build is this hopper clock here, which has a stack and 13 items in it. This is the amount of time it takes for the villager to notice that the raid has finished and also reset it so we can make a new raid. So right now you can see the village is in the victory stage, and it's in the stage for a little while. And once that bar is removed, then we can come in with a new set of bad omen and start up a new raid. But if you try to start a new raid at this point here, the village would not accept it. It would just remove the bad omen. So with this clock, it also gives the player enough time to actually kill all the mobs that come into the drop down chute right here. That way there's no mobs left behind for them to regenerate by the time the player goes down and back up again. Because if there was like a evoker in there and the player happened to fall down as the evoker comes down to the chute, there's a period of time where the evoker could actually regenerate health and then the player would come back. It's possible for him not to be able to kill it in a single hit. Now with the spawning platform up above, with the mobs just kind of sliding off the edge, if you're afraid of one of these evokers sliding off the edge and this actually happening, you can make the player go down a little bit lower, and that way all the mobs up here will despawn when the player is down below. So what this does is the clock goes over here into a trapdoor, which goes into an observer, then goes into a repeater, and it just flicks this trapdoor for a very brief moment. This allows the player to fall downwards. So you'll see as soon as the trapdoor flicks, the player falls. He falls all the way down to the very bottom. And when the player reaches the bottom, he's going to touch this trapdoor here, which is going to power this piston here, and is going to push him from being right here over into being inside this water. So if I drop down here, you can see how I get pushed over into this water. And this is a bubble column, which is ascending, and there is a piece of soul sand here. You can see the player coming down, gets pushed back up. This will cause the player to drop really fast downwards and also get pushed really fast upwards by using this column. We have a piece of water here to prevent the player from taking fall damage. And I did accidentally have some fish spawning in this as I was building this in a ocean biome, so I just put a slab in there to prevent fish from spawning in there. There's also a chance that drowns can spawn inside of bubble columns, so it's good to put in some light sources along the edge as well. So depending on what biome you build this in, you kind of have to be aware of those type of things. Now originally I actually had just a piece of slime block here, and the player would fall down, bounce on the slime block, and then end up bouncing quite high, and then I was pushed into the water column for the rest of the way. That can be kind of inconsistent on servers, so it's better to kind of go with a more consistent, slower method, which is this here. And it really doesn't matter how fast the player gets back up there. He still has to wait up there for quite a while before the mobs actually come down so he can kill them. Also down here we have the beacon. We have both regeneration as well as strength. Like I said earlier, strength helps you be able to do a larger amount of damage with the sweeping effect. Where the regeneration is only needed if you're playing on servers with hard difficulty, because with hard difficulty, once you run out of hunger, you automatically start taking some damage, and regeneration will prevent you from dying. I also want to light up this so mobs don't spawn here. I just put down some buttons. I also put the beacons down low, that way they will be able to give the player the regeneration effects even when he's down here. As beacons will be able to give their effects upwards, infinite amount of distance, but only downwards 50 blocks. So it's always worth building your beacons down lower. Now the villager is way down here. And to make a village valid, you only need is a villager as well as a bed. And you might have to wait for the villager to actually accept the bed. And only when he accepts it will he actually be able to take in the bad omen. You also want to make sure to keep the villager safe, so make sure there's nothing around here that can kill him. That is the only villager in the farm. Originally we actually had a villager at the very top, which was kind of standing off to the edge, about right over here, which would make the mobs all run towards the direction of where the villager was standing, but they would be unable to actually attack him because he was kind of far off. There's actually a weird mechanic that they added recently into raids, which allows the pillager captains, which are the ones that have the banners atop their head, are able to see a distance of 32 blocks away from them, so they can actually see the villager that's pretty far away, but they're unable to shoot that far. The rest of the mobs are only able to see the villager if he's kind of close, about 16 blocks away. So because of that, you think they wouldn't be able to attack the villager, but there's this weird thing where the leaders are able to inform the rest of the mobs about mobs that they can see that are kind of far away. So what was happening is the leaders with the banners were telling the rest of the mobs, including evokers, that there was a villager way off in the distance, and the evokers can actually send Vex almost an infinite amount of distance, so they're able to send the Vex way over there to kill the villager, even though they themselves are not able to see the villager. So a really weird thing that they added, and big thanks to VK Tech for looking into the code to figure out what exactly was going on with this weird behavior which we were seeing. And after we learned about that, we went ahead and just removed the villager, and we went with this really simple setup here where the mobs just kind of push each other off the edge. Now with each wave, it actually produces quite a few of these guys with banners, so you don't have to worry about accidentally not getting one of these guys to start up a new raid. So even if one or a few get left up here on top of the platform, you'll still have enough underneath to start up a new raid. And by having the ice up here, it really simplifies the entire structure of this. And you don't really need any redstone up here. There's two other smaller pieces of redstone that I really didn't talk about. I guess I talked about the one down there, but there's also this one here, which just pushes the player over. So when the player comes out of the water stream here, he's going to be bobbing up and down. And he's going to come in contact with this pressure plate here, which is just going to go over into a piston. And it's going to push these two observers together, which is going to make a clock, and it's going to come around here and just pulse these pistons. You can kind of see it as the player comes up. You'll see them pulsing over to the side. We need to pulse multiple times, not just one time. This way, if you're accidentally on a server that kind of has bad ping, you'll have multiple times of trying to push the player over there. And as long as the player is still touching the pressure plate, it'll continue to keep trying to push the player over to the side and will eventually make it so that he is in the correct location. So the player is standing in a very precise location, but every time he kind of goes through this whole system going down and back up again, he will be placed in the exact same location so that he can click right between the block and this chest, which is a very small area, but it is plenty of room for him to actually attack all the mobs. I tested this farm for long periods of time. I actually ran it overnight without any issues whatsoever. We also had other members that helped work on it, like Activation. He he went ahead and tested this as well. And he's also one that tested it for the rates of the farm. Also, Puffingfish has tested this farm as well, and he's the one that's going to be doing the tutorial on it. So if you guys want to know how to exactly build this up block for block, that will be on his YouTube channel, which I'll link down below. Now, sometimes you might notice a witch standing here jumping up and down. This is only because he's trying to go to a special location, which is above, to stand there. And after you go ahead and kill these guys off a little bit, he will stop jumping up and down. Now, when it comes to building this up, you can use whatever materials you want to. I use glass just so you guys can kind of see what's going on. You can use cobblestone, any block you want. Just make sure to slab it, place buttons on it, or light it up so other mobs don't spawn on it. The only important blocks they want to have glass are these blocks here, that way they don't suffocate the player and do any damage to him. You can also build this wherever you want pretty much. It doesn't matter if it's daytime or nighttime, this thing works 24/7, all time periods of the day. Really no limit to where you can build this. We even built our original design in the end dimension, which is kind of nice because you don't have to worry about anything going on in the overworld. If you really want to, you can even build this in another dimension. Obviously, you're going to have to try to overcome the water obstacles, so you're going to have to use more pistons to move the player as well as the mobs. I think building over top of ocean is a pretty good idea, as you're really not loading any other hostile mobs. But if you're worried about kind of preventing other people from sleeping in the overworld, you can build it in the end dimension. Now, you don't need to have the beacon if you don't really want to. You can try to avoid it. The strength isn't necessary, and the regeneration is only needed in a hard mode if you're not eating. So you could also give the player some food so he regenerates using food rather than using a beacon. And by doing that, it would actually make this farm extremely simple to build up and not very costly, as most materials are pretty simple to come by. The hardest part might actually just be getting the villager over here. I'd recommend using a boat to grab a villager from a village, and then just using some of the bubble columns to push him up here near his bed. He doesn't need a workstation or anything like that. That'll actually just kind of slow him down. And if you want to, you could just have the entire farm move downwards so that the bottom of it is at the same level as the water down here. And then you wouldn't have to move the villager upwards. Now, if you have any questions about building this up, make sure to check out Puffingfish's tutorial video when it comes up onto his YouTube channel. But if you still have questions, you guys can always ask them down in the comments. If there's something that I change about the farm or something that I forget to mention in this video, I will add it into the description. And it also may change the world download depending on any concerns that you guys have. I really had a lot of fun designing this farm up and going through a lot of different versions before coming up with our final design. If you guys enjoy what I do here, make sure to go ahead and drop a subscription. Also check out all the other videos, as I have over 500 videos very similar to this, showing really cool types of farms as well as tricks, as well as exploits which you can use in your very own survival world. And I do have playlists that go into each one individually. And be sure to go ahead and tell your favorite Minecrafters about this super simple raid farm. Pretty much anybody can design this up and use it. And tell me what you guys are going to do with all the amazing loots that come from this down in the comments. And don't forget about the snapshot streams every Wednesday and Friday. And I'll notify you guys of those streams through YouTube, Twitter, as well as the ProtoTech community Discord. I'd like to thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.